I'm going to talk about the paradox of creativity and a process for innovation. Now, it's been said that at every instant, everything is recreated. If we think about that, and if we have a certain reality, then what's being said is that at every instant, that reality is constantly being recreated. So if we graph this through time, then from the past into the present, into the future, we have an incredible act of creativity in which all that exists is continually being recreated. But yet we know that every circumstance is a little different from the preceding circumstance. So that implies some kind of impulse in the moment by which what exists begins to experiment, and in that experimentation there's some superstate that's created. So we represent this impulse as this three-phased model of the seed or physical, the stalk or vital, and the flower or mental. So when we think about creativity using these three levels as anchors, then what we're implying is that creativity, or the energy that exists to uphold anything, is always constant. So regardless if we're at the seed or physical stage, or we're transitioning to the next, or at the vital stage, or we're transitioning into the flower, or we're at the flower stage, it's the same amount of energy that's upholding that reality. So creativity is therefore a constant. And in this graph, we have energy that's being employed to keep any situation the way it is. Now, by simple thought experiment, we know that this has to be true, because if there is an explosion of energy, or rather if energy increases, there's going to be an explosion and inherent instability. If energy decreases, there's going to be implosion and again instability. But when we look around us, when we think about ourselves, we continue to exist from moment to moment, which means that that energy has to be constant. So now the question is, how does innovation occur? So if we think about innovation, then what we really have, and using the same graph and the same levels, what we see is that innovation is a function of orientation. So we have orientation on the vertical axis, and orientation can be either the mental, vital, or the physical, vital, or mental levels, or the seed, stalk, or flower levels. And at the physical level, what we will find, where the orientation is contained within a certain boundary, innovation is going to be incremental. When we enter into the experimental stage or the vital stage, then we're going to find that innovation is going to increase fairly rapidly as compared to the previous stage. And then when we enter into the mental stage, we're going to find an exponential increase, something much more steep, as it were. And if we think about this, suppose we represent this amount of innovation by a quantity x, then at the vital level we can think of it as perhaps being 3x, and at this level perhaps being 100x to a much larger quantity. So innovation increases much more rapidly as we shift our orientation. So the next question is there a process to such innovation? So using these same three levels, what we really have is, in the very first stage, where we have things in a kind of a status quo and where the energy is equal to energy at every other level, it implies a process of awareness, and I'm going to move up here to represent this, but awareness, and here the awareness is really an awareness of the incredible amount of creativity and energy that exists to keep things as they are. And so what is the structure? What is the system? What are the processes? What is the culture? What are the assumptions? And so on, that keep things the way they are. So that's the very first step of this process of innovation, is to become aware of what's holding us in a certain state. The next stage is an increase in experimentation. And that experimentation can be thought of as changing some of the fundamental underlying properties of what kept us in a certain state. So here, the experimentation, this yields to a change. So it can be small changes in the structure or the system or the process or the culture or assumptions. And these small changes will increase innovation by changing one of these underlying fundamental parameters. And the third stage, which I'll call following the flower, is where each of these is more dynamically changed according to this deep imprint that exists in all circumstance. So the following the flower, and we already see a representation of this going all the way back from here across this. So when we think about a process of innovation, it's really this process of awareness, experimentation, and following the flower.